What will you do to make that happen?
I will not make that happen.
President Joe Biden faced heavy backlash, including from members of his own party, for his rejection of student debt cancellation during a CNN town hall. Now, before I get to his response and the reaction to that, I first want to show you this clip from another part of the town hall.
Some of you are probably economists or college professors or you teach it in school. This is the first time in my career, and as you can tell, I'm over 30, the first time in my career that there is a consensus among economists, left, right, and center, that is and including the IMF and in Europe, that the overwhelming consensus is in order to grow the economy a year, 2, 3, and 4 down the line, we can't spend too much. Now's the time we should be spending. Now's the time to go big.
Now is the time we should be spending. Now is the time to go big. If now is the time to go big, then what are his thoughts about canceling student debt?
Student loans are crushing my family, friends, and fellow Americans.
Me too.
The American dream is to
kidding.
succeed, but how can we fulfill that dream when debt is many people's only option for a degree? We need student loan forgiveness beyond the potential $10,000 your administration has proposed. We need at least a $50,000 minimum. What will you do to make that happen?
I will not make that happen. It depends on whether or not you go to a private university or a public university. It depends on the idea that I say to a community, I'm going to forgive the debt, the billions of dollars of debt for people who have gone to Harvard and Yale and Penn and schools, my children. I went to a great school. I went to a state school. But is that going to be forgiven rather than use that money to provide for early education for young children who come from disadvantaged circumstances?
So now is the time to go big, according to Joe Biden, except in the case of student loan debt. Now, his arguments here are completely ridiculous, and the reactions I will get to will address all of them. But first up here, he discussed how left, right, center, everyone agrees, time to go big. That's also in the case of student loans. In the space of a few years, the prospect of canceling outstanding student loans has moved from the far out fringe of higher education policy reforms to the center of the policy debate, and it could become actual executive branch policy in the very near future. President-elect Joe Biden, with the authority over the Department of Education, could issue sweeping debt cancellation with a pen stroke, and he should. Today, more than 44 million Americans hold a total of about $1.6 trillion in student debt, creating significant financial hardship that has reached crisis proportions even before the pandemic triggered massive job losses. So, not only is there a consensus now about the benefits of canceling student debt, but also Joe Biden has the power to do it himself. He doesn't even need Congress. He can do this through executive order, and he is not willing to do it, even though he claims now is the time to go big. And if you look at polling on this, it's also very clear. Data for Progress here. Indeed, public opinion research consistently shows broad popular support for student debt cancellation, including among non-borrowers. New national polling from Data for Progress and the Justice Collaborative Institute shows that 55% of voters, including 52% of Republicans, support canceling all current student debt. 85% of voters, including 76% of Republicans, support canceling up to $20,000 in student debt per person. A majority of voters, 51%, believe that student debt cancellation should apply universally to all borrowers and not just a certain group, such as low-wage workers. 55% of voters support President-elect Joe Biden using executive action to cancel student debt owed to or guaranteed by the federal government. 55% of voters support executive action to cancel up to $75,000 in student debt per person as a response to the pandemic-induced economic crisis. And a Hill-Harris X poll shows that 60% of U.S. voters support Biden canceling $50,000 of student loan debt per person. And from NBC News, most black voters support eliminating student loan debt, new survey finds. A survey of registered black voters shows 40% would consider staying home for the next election if there's no action taken on student loan debt. And you often see articles like this from Time, why student debt cancellation is vital for Americans most hurt by the pandemic. This is now an idea that is being universally accepted. Because when you actually look at the data, how this would play out, it would only help people. It would allow people to put money back into the economy, removing them from this weight that is student debt, holding them down, unable to buy a house, unable to start a family, unable to put money into anything because of the debt that they have from just going to school. Because they were told, if you want to live a proper life, if you want to make a living, you have to go to college. Well, to go to college, you have to go into student debt or take out student loans, go into debt. And now people coming out of college, unable to find good paying jobs, saddled with this debt. Now, let me get to some reactions to Joe Biden's response in this town hall. AOC here tweeting out, "Who cares what school someone went to? Entire generations of working class kids were encouraged to go into more debt under the guise of elitism. This is wrong. Nowhere does it say we must trade off early childhood education for student loan forgiveness. We can have both. The case against student loan forgiveness is looking shakier by the day. We've got the Senate Majority Leader on board to forgive $50,000. Biden's holding back, but many of the arguments against it just don't hold water on close inspection. We can and should do it. Keep pushing." Ayanna Pressley here tweeting out, quote, "A survey of registered black voters shows 40% would consider staying home for the next election if there's no action on student loan debt," quoting the article I showed you earlier, and adding here, hashtag cancel student debt, all of it. Gabe Gonzalez here tweeting out, "I was the first person in my family to pursue a bachelor's degree and went to an elite school where even with scholarships, need-based grants, and an on-campus job, I faced food insecurity and couldn't afford to fly back home for the holidays." Cedric Humphrey here tweeting out, "You tell children their entire lives it is necessary to go to the best school possible. Those universities extort them out of $100,000+ and then you refuse to help them because they followed the plan laid out for them. Cancel student debt across the board." Caroline or Bueno, PhD, here tweets out, "Cancel student loan debt. Just do it. No past generation has had to shoulder this much debt straight out of school, and no future generation should have to." This from Brianna Wu, "Rich people don't have student debt, Joe." And this last one from Deadmo Rob says, "I absolutely despise how these politicians will give rich people plenty of tax breaks and handouts on the down low, but when it comes to sweeping and potentially life-changing policy, they always use, quote, 'but rich people will benefit' as an excuse not to do it." This last point is so well put. How often are the wealthy helped, be it through a lower corporate tax rate, be it through lower taxes in general for the wealthy? Democrats consistently support those policies. Yet here you have the opportunity to help poor people with student loan debt, and your excuse is, "Oh, it'll help the rich." Nobody is buying this. What rich kids have student loan debt? And guess what? If they somehow do, cancel it. Who cares? The benefits of helping people universally, I don't care if a few rich people also get off with having their student debt canceled. Who cares? Ultimately here, you are helping people that need help, that are unable to put money back into the economy because they have this sort of debt. And also the argument he made earlier that AOC brought up, that if you want student loan debt, then you can't have early childhood education. Why? Like this again, these false choices that are just that they're self-imposed. There is no reason for this. These are conservative arguments that Joe Biden is making, and Joe Biden is a conservative, so I guess it makes sense. But on one hand, to say now's the time to go big, and then on the other hand to say, oh no, we can't cancel student loan debt, it just shows you how dishonest Joe Biden is.